Clara was a nurse who radiated compassion and dedication with every gesture. Her serene smile and empathetic eyes made everyone in the hospital feel welcome. She was known for her unwavering patience and her ability to form deep bonds with her patients. Every day, Clara arrived at the hospital early, ready to face the intense routine of care. She walked through the corridors, greeting each colleague with a kind word, but it was in the patients' rooms where her true magic happened. Among her patients, there was one who always intrigued her deeply, Mr. Alfredo, an elderly man with a melancholic gaze who hadn't uttered a word since being admitted. The doctors couldn't explain his silence, and attempts to communicate seemed fruitless. However, Clara felt a special connection with him. There was something in his eyes that spoke directly to her heart, a silent plea for help and understanding. Every day, Clara cared for Alfredo with special affection. When changing his bandages, offering him meals, or helping him move, she strived to understand what he needed, even without words. Delicate gestures and deep looks became their form of communication. Over time, she noticed that Alfredo responded to these small acts of kindness with a slight sparkle in his eyes, an almost imperceptible nod. Clara knew there was more behind Alfredo's silence, something he carried deep within his soul, and with her patience and love, she was determined to discover it. Each day spent by his side, Clara felt she was getting closer to unraveling the mysteries surrounding this silent man. At the same time, she herself was transforming, learning about the strength of silence and the power of presence. Clara's days at the hospital were always full of challenges, but Mr. Alfredo held a special place in her heart. He was not just another patient. He was an enigma wrapped in silence. Clara closely observed every reaction of his, every tiny gesture that might reveal something about his past. She knew that behind those sad eyes lay a story waiting to be told. During her rounds, Clara often sat by Alfredo's bedside, talking to him as if he could respond. She spoke about the weather, shared funny stories from the hospital corridors, and occasionally ventured some gentle questions about his life before he became mute. Alfredo listened in silence, but Clara could see he was paying attention, his eyes following her every move as if absorbing every word. One afternoon, while Clara was adjusting Alfredo's pillows, she noticed a small, worn book on his bedside table. It was a diary, battered by time and use. Intrigued, Clara softly asked if she could take a look. To her surprise, Alfredo gave a slight nod, granting her permission. Opening the diary, Clara found pages filled with writings, scribbles, and drawings. Each page told a fragment of Alfredo's life, his joys and sorrows, his dreams and fears. One entry in particular caught her attention. "I lost my voice the day I lost my soul. Words abandoned me, just like everything I loved." These words hit Clara like a wave of sadness. She realized that Alfredo had gone through something terrible, something that had silenced him in a profound and painful way. With a heavy heart, Clara closed the diary and held Alfredo's hand, feeling the urgency to convey comfort and understanding. She knew she couldn't fix the past, but she was determined to be a presence of light in his present life. The connection between them deepened each day, and Clara was convinced that, somehow, she would help Alfredo find his voice again, or at least the peace he so desperately seemed to lack. As days turned into weeks, Clara continued to uncover fragments of Mr. Alfredo's life through his diary. Each page revealed a new layer of his complex story, and Clara felt increasingly connected to him. There were drawings of bucolic landscapes, sad poems, and memories of happier times. Alfredo had been an artist, that much was clear. The skill with which he captured the beauty of the world around him was impressive, even though his trembling hands could no longer hold a brush. One afternoon, While leafing through the diary, Clara found an old photograph carefully tucked between the pages. It was a black and white photo of a younger Alfredo, with a radiant smile beside a kind-looking woman and a small girl. Clara felt a lump in her throat as she saw the happiness on their faces. Who were these people? What had happened to them? Determined to discover more, Clara asked an older nurse who had worked at the hospital for many years. Nurse Marta vaguely remembered Alfredo and his tragedy. He had lost his wife and daughter in a car accident many years ago. The pain consumed him so much that he simply stopped speaking, isolating himself in a world of silence and suffering. With this new information, Clara returned to Alfredo's room with a renewed sense of empathy and compassion. She sat beside him, holding the photo between her fingers. "Mr. Alfredo, I found this photo in your diary. Your family was beautiful," she said softly. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Alfredo's eyes filled with tears at the sight of the photo. He held Clara's hand tightly, as if his long-repressed emotions had finally found an outlet. Clara knew she didn't need words to understand the depth of his pain. She stayed by his side, offering comfort and a friendly presence. That night, Clara left the hospital with a heavy heart but with renewed determination. She would do everything she could to bring some joy and light back into Alfredo's life. He deserved more than the silence and darkness that had enveloped him for so many years. And so, with a new mission in mind, Clara promised herself she would continue to fight to help Alfredo find his lost voice, or at least the peace he so desperately longed for. As the days passed, Clara noticed a small change in Alfredo's behavior. He seemed more attentive, his eyes following her movements with renewed intensity. Clara decided it was time to try something different, something that might awaken the dormant passion in his heart. That morning, she brought a set of watercolors and a pad of paper to Alfredo's room. "Mr. Alfredo, I thought maybe we could paint together today," Clara said, placing the materials on the table beside his bed. "I know you used to be a talented artist. Maybe this will bring back some good memories." Alfredo looked at the watercolors with a mix of surprise and hesitation. Clara opened the pad of paper and picked up a brush, dipping it in water before lightly touching the vibrant colors. She began to paint a simple landscape, a scene of a flowered field under a blue sky. Alfredo watched her every move, his eyes shining with an interest Clara had not yet seen. After a few minutes, Clara handed the brush to Alfredo, encouraging him to try. With trembling hands, he accepted the brush and slowly began to trace delicate lines on the paper. At first, his movements were uncertain, but gradually his confidence returned, and he began to create more defined shapes. Clara watched with admiration as Alfredo, as if by magic, seemed to transform back into the artist he once was. The hours passed quickly, and Alfredo's room filled with colors and life. He painted a portrait of his wife and daughter, capturing their expressions with a precision and tenderness that deeply moved Clara. There was a peace in Alfredo that she had never seen before, as if he were finally finding a way to express the pain and love he had held inside for so long. Clara knew this was just the beginning of a healing process. Alfredo's paintings were more than mere works of art. They were windows into his soul, allowing him to process his emotions in a way words never could. As the painting session came to an end, Alfredo looked at Clara with gratitude in his eyes, and Clara felt that, in some way, they had begun to break down the barrier of silence that imprisoned him. That night, as she reflected on the day, Clara felt a wave of hope. She was helping Alfredo rediscover color in a world that once seemed gray and lifeless. And in return, he was teaching her the importance of connecting deeply with others, even when words fail. One day, while cleaning Alfredo's room, Clara found an old leather notebook hidden under the mattress. Curious, she picked it up and realized it was a diary. The pages were yellowed with age, and the elegant handwriting revealed a story that begged to be read. Clara hesitated for a moment, respecting Alfredo's privacy, but something inside her told her that this diary might hold the key to better understanding the silence that surrounded the elderly man. When Alfredo woke from his nap, Clara sat beside his bed, holding the diary carefully. "Mr. Alfredo, I found this while cleaning. It's your diary, isn't it?" She showed him the notebook, and his eyes widened in recognition. Alfredo nodded slowly, his expression reflecting a mix of nostalgia and sadness. Clara knew she had found something significant. "Would you like me to read to you? Or perhaps you want to read some passages yourself?" she suggested, offering the diary back to him. With trembling hands, Alfredo took the diary and began to leaf through it. His hands stopped on a specific page, and he looked at Clara with tear-filled eyes. Wordlessly, he indicated that Clara should read it aloud. Clara opened to the marked page and began to read. "Today, I painted Helena's face once again. Every stroke, every shadow, brings back the memories of the happy days we spent together. The longing is a constant pain, but painting helps keep her alive in my heart." Clara realized that Helena must have been Alfredo's wife. She continued reading, each word revealing the depth of the love and loss he felt. Silent tears rolled down Alfredo's face as he relived those memories through the written words. Clara felt a pang in her chest seeing Alfredo's anguish, but she also realized that, in a way, he was relieved to share these memories. In the days that followed, reading the diary became a routine for Clara and Alfredo. Each entry revealed more about Alfredo's life and feelings, bringing him back to those moments of joy and sorrow. Clara felt that, by sharing these memories, Alfredo was beginning to find a way to cope with his pain. One day, while turning a page, Clara found an entry that took her breath away. "Helena, my dear, I promised you I would take care of our daughter, but I feel I have failed. Silence has become my refuge, but also my prison. I long for the day I can speak again, but fear paralyzes me." Clara looked at Alfredo, now understanding the magnitude of his struggle. She realized he was not just a lonely old man. He was a man carrying the burden of promises and regrets. Determined to help him find peace, Clara held Alfredo's hand and vowed to herself that she would do everything she could to help him break free from the silence that imprisoned him. The next morning, Clara arrived at the hospital with a renewed sense of determination. Alfredo's diary had unveiled a crucial part of his life, but there were still so many unanswered questions. She decided it was time to try a new approach. Entering Alfredo's room, she found him staring out the window, lost in thought. "Good morning, Mr. Alfredo," she said gently. "I've been thinking a lot about what we read yesterday. I'd like to know more about your daughter. What is her name?" Alfredo turned slowly, his eyes meeting Clara's. There was a mixture of sadness and hope in his gaze. He reached for the diary on his bedside table and, with trembling hands, opened it to a specific page. Clara sat beside him, waiting patiently. He pointed to an entry where the name Isabel was lovingly written several times. "Isabel," Clara read aloud, feeling the weight of the name. "Your daughter's name is Isabel. Where is she now, Mr. Alfredo?" Alfredo closed his eyes for a moment, as if summoning the courage within himself. When he opened them, he took a pen and a piece of paper, and with great effort wrote, "Lost. I don't know where she is." Clara's heart ached as she read Alfredo's words. She understood that he had lost contact with his daughter a long time ago, and that the pain of this loss was profound. "Mr. Alfredo," she began gently, "would you like me to try to help find Isabel? Maybe we can search for her together." Alfredo looked at Clara, surprised and touched by her offer. He nodded slowly, and for the first time, Clara saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. She smiled and held his hand. "Let's start right now," she said with determination. In the following days, Clara dedicated herself to finding clues about Isabel's whereabouts. She searched through hospital records, made phone calls, and even visited some old addresses that Alfredo had noted in his diary. Every small progress she made was shared with Alfredo, and he seemed to gain a bit more life with each new discovery. One afternoon, while Clara was reviewing documents in Alfredo's room, she found an old letter, carefully folded between the pages of the diary. It was from Isabel, dated many years ago. "Dear Papa," the letter began, "I am well and think of you every day. I hope that one day we can be reunited. With love, Isabel." Clara read the letter aloud to Alfredo, who closed his eyes and let silent tears roll down his face. "She still thinks of you," Clara whispered. "We'll find her, I promise." The letter provided Clara with a new lead, an address where Isabel had once lived. Determined, she prepared to visit the location. Before leaving, she approached Alfredo and held his hand. "I'm going to find your daughter, Mr. Alfredo. We'll bring Isabel back to you." As she left the hospital, Clara felt hopeful and determined. She knew this journey would be challenging, but she was ready to face any obstacle to reunite father and daughter. After all, it was the least she could do for a man who had suffered so much in silence. Clara drove through the city streets with her heart racing, following the address Isabel had mentioned in the letter. With every mile, her anxiety and hope grew. The neighborhood where Isabel supposedly lived was modest but well kept. Trees lined the sidewalks, swaying gently in the breeze, creating a serene atmosphere. When Clara finally arrived at the address, she parked the car and took a deep breath. The house was modest, with a well-tended garden in the front. She hesitated for a moment, imagining how the encounter would unfold, but soon gathered her courage and walked up to the door. She rang the doorbell, her heart beating at a frantic pace. A middle-aged woman answered the door. Her eyes, initially curious, softened when she saw Clara's determined expression. "Can I help you?" she asked kindly. "My name is Clara," she began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm looking for Isabel. She is the daughter of Alfredo, one of my patients at the hospital." The woman looked at Clara with surprise, then a sad smile spread across her face. "I am Isabel," she said, the revelation bringing a mix of relief and sadness to Clara. "How is my father?" Clara felt a weight lift off her shoulders upon hearing those words. "He is well, but he misses you dearly. He lost the ability to speak, but he writes about you every day in his diary. He still loves you very much and desperately wants to see you." Isabel closed her eyes, absorbing the information. "I tried to find my father for many years," she confessed. "But life took me on different paths, and I lost contact. I always hoped he was well." Clara placed a hand on Isabel's shoulder, offering comfort. "He has never stopped thinking about you, Isabel. When he learned you were alive and well, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes that I had never seen before. You need to see him." Isabel nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Yes, I need to see him. Let me grab a few things, and we can go." As Isabel prepared, Clara looked around the house and noticed several photos of Isabel with her family. It seemed she had built a happy life, but the absence of Alfredo was evident. When Isabel returned, ready to leave, Clara saw the determination in her eyes. The drive back to the hospital was silent but filled with anticipation. Clara explained to Isabel how Alfredo had become a reserved man, almost lost in his own silence, but always nurturing the hope of a reunion with his daughter. When they arrived at the hospital, Clara led Isabel to Alfredo's room. She paused at the door, giving Isabel a moment to prepare. "He's right in there," Clara said softly. "Are you ready?" Isabel took a deep breath and nodded. Clara slowly opened the door, revealing Alfredo sitting in his chair, looking out the window. Hearing the door, he turned, his eyes widening at the sight of Isabel standing there, tears in her eyes. "Papa," Isabel whispered, her voice full of emotion. "It's me, Isabel." Alfredo reached out his trembling hand, his eyes shining with tears of joy. Isabel rushed to him, wrapping him in a tight embrace, finally reunited with the man she had always loved. Clara watched the scene with tears in her eyes, knowing she had helped make a miracle happen. The room filled with emotion and hope, the reunion between father and daughter marking the beginning of a new journey for both. Clara's journey had also been transformed, and she knew her life would never be the same after witnessing such a deep and enduring love. The emotion in the room was palpable. Isabel, still embracing Alfredo, felt the strength of her father's love like a balm for the wounds of time and distance. Tears flowed freely down both their faces, each drop carrying years of longing, regret, and hope. "Dad, forgive me for not finding you sooner," Isabel whispered between sobs, her voice heavy with pain and regret. Alfredo, his hand still trembling, caressed his daughter's face, his expression softening. He didn't need words to convey his forgiveness. His eyes, shining with unconditional love, said it all. He took Isabel's hand and held it tightly, as if afraid she might disappear again. Clara, standing at the door, watched the scene with a warm heart. She knew she had been a catalyst for this moment, and felt profound gratitude for having played such a significant role in the lives of these two people. "Isabel, I never stopped thinking about you," Alfredo wrote in the notebook Clara had left by his bedside. "Every day without you was an incomplete day." Isabel read the words, and her heart tightened. "I did too, Dad. I always dreamed of the day I could find you again. I didn't know if you were still alive, but I never lost hope." Alfredo smiled, a smile that lit up his time-worn face. "We are together now, and that's what matters," he wrote, and Isabel nodded vigorously. The nurses passing by the corridor peered into the room, moved by the scene. The reunion had touched everyone in the hospital, spreading a sense of renewal and hope. Clara approached, placing a gentle hand on Isabel's shoulder. "I'll leave you two alone for a while. If you need anything, I'll be around." Isabel thanked her with a warm smile. "Thank you, Clara. You don't know how much this means to us." Clara nodded and left the room, allowing father and daughter to enjoy the moment. As she walked down the corridor, she reflected on the power of human connections and how sometimes a simple act of kindness could change lives. Back in the room, Isabel began to tell Alfredo about her life, her struggles, and her achievements, while he listened intently, absorbing every detail. They laughed and cried together, sharing stories and rediscovering the bond that had never truly been broken. "Dad, I want you to meet your granddaughter," Isabel said, with a mix of joy and nervousness in her voice. "Her name is Sophia, and she's a wonderful girl. I want you to be a part of her life." Alfredo's eyes sparkled with pride and happiness as he read those words. He gave a thumbs up and wrote, "I can't wait to meet her." Isabel took out her phone and showed pictures of Sophia to Alfredo, who examined them carefully, a tender smile on his face. Seeing the family Isabel had built gave him new hope and a renewed purpose. The afternoon passed quickly, and Isabel's presence brought new energy to Alfredo's room. They made plans for the future, dreamed together, and promised never to be apart again. This reunion was not just a moment of joy, but the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, full of possibilities and love. In the days following the reunion, Isabel became a constant presence by Alfredo's side. She spent hours at the hospital, sharing stories from her life, showing photos of special moments, and most importantly, strengthening the bond that, despite the distance, had never broken. Clara, always present, watched with tenderness the transformation of Alfredo. The man who had once been closed off in his own silence now exuded a renewed joy. Finally, the day arrived when Isabel brought Sophia to meet her grandfather. The girl, with her curious eyes and radiant smile, timidly entered the hospital room, holding her mother's hand tightly. Alfredo, sitting on the bed, felt his heart race at the sight of his granddaughter for the first time. "Grandpa?" Sophia asked, her soft voice breaking the silence. Alfredo nodded, tears in his eyes. He extended his arms, and Sophia ran to him, embracing him with the strength of a love that seemed to transcend time and distance. The embrace was long, filled with emotions that words could not describe. Alfredo stroked Sophia's hair, feeling a deep peace at finally having his family together. Isabel watched the scene, her own tears of happiness streaming down her face. Clara, standing at the door, felt privileged to witness such an intimate and powerful moment. She knew that her decision to investigate Alfredo's past had forever changed the lives of that family. "Grandpa, Mom told me many stories about you," Sophia said, looking at Alfredo with admiration. "I'm so happy to finally meet you." Alfredo smiled and picked up his notebook to write. "I'm happy to meet you too, Sophia. You are everything I dreamed of and more." The following days were filled with joy and rediscovery. Isabel brought storybooks for Alfredo to read to Sophia, and the little girl was enchanted by every tale. They spent entire afternoons together, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Sophia's presence brought new vitality to Alfredo. The man who once seemed to wither away each day now radiated life and happiness. The hospital nurses noticed the change and often commented on the miracle of the family's reunion. One day, while Clara was making her rounds, Alfredo called her over with a wave of his hand. She approached, curious, and he wrote in his notebook, "Thank you, Clara. You brought my family back to me. I can never repay what you did for us." Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. "It was a privilege to help, Alfredo. Seeing you with your family is the best reward I could ever have." Isabel also expressed her gratitude to Clara. "You not only saved my father, but also gave us a second chance. We will always be grateful for that." Clara smiled, feeling deeply touched. Sometimes, the simplest gestures have the greatest impact. "I'm happy to have made a difference." The lives of Alfredo, Isabel, and Sophia had changed forever. What began as an unexpected encounter in the hospital turned into a story of love, redemption, and new beginnings. And for Clara, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of human connections and the ability of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Time passed, and the days at the hospital turned into precious memories for Alfredo, Isabel, and Sophia. Alfredo's recovery was slow but steady, driven by the strength of love and the renewed presence of his family. Clara continued to care for him with dedication, and their friendship blossomed. One day, while Alfredo and Sophia were together in the visitors' lounge, he began to draw something in his notebook. "Sophia, curious, watched attentively. With steady hands, Alfredo sketched a beautiful garden filled with colorful flowers and lush trees. "Grandpa, it's so beautiful!" Sophia exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. Alfredo smiled and wrote, "This is the Garden of Dreams, a place where love grows and flourishes, just like our family." Isabel, who was nearby, approached and looked at the drawing with admiration. "Dad, it's beautiful. You've always had a talent for art." Alfredo nodded, remembering how he used to draw for Isabel when she was a child. Those moments were his refuge, a way to express the love he felt for his daughter. And now, he was doing the same for his granddaughter. Clara, passing by the room, noticed the drawing and came closer. "Alfredo, this is wonderful. You have a gift." Alfredo smiled shyly and wrote, "Drawing brings me peace, and sharing this with my family is a gift." Clara, touched by Alfredo's words, had an idea. "Sophia, how about we organize an exhibition with your grandpa's drawings here at the hospital? It would be a way to spread joy and showcase his talent to everyone." Sophia's eyes lit up. "Yes, Grandpa. Let's do it. Everyone will love seeing your drawings." Alfredo hesitated for a moment, but Sophia's enthusiasm and Clara's kindness convinced him. He nodded, feeling grateful for the opportunity to share his art. In the days that followed, Clara and Isabel helped Alfredo organize the drawings. Each sketch was a piece of Alfredo's heart, an expression of love, hope, and renewal. Sophia contributed her own artwork, inspired by her grandfather. The exhibition was a success. Patients, doctors, nurses, and visitors stopped to admire the works. There was an aura of tranquility and beauty that permeated the space, a sense of unity and hope. As Alfredo walked through the exhibition, he felt deep satisfaction. He was sharing a part of himself, something that transcended his physical limitations and gave new purpose to his life. He looked at Clara, Isabel, and Sophia, and felt warmth in his heart. Isabel hugged her father lovingly. "Dad, I'm so proud of you. Your art is incredible and has touched so many people." Clara smiled, feeling equally proud. "Alfredo, you've brought joy and inspiration to all of us. This is the true power of love and art." Sophia, holding her grandfather's hand, looked at him with admiration. "Grandpa, I love you. Thank you for sharing your drawings with me and everyone." Alfredo, with tears in his eyes, wrote, "Art is the language of the heart, and my heart is full of love for all of you." The exhibition not only brought joy to the hospital, but also strengthened the bonds between Alfredo and his family. They learned that love can heal, inspire, and transform lives in ways they never imagined. And for Clara, it was a confirmation of the profound impact that human connections can have, reinforcing her dedication to caring for others with love and compassion. With the art exhibition still echoing through the hospital corridors, Alfredo's life began to change in ways he had never imagined. Isabel and Sophia's visits became more frequent, and each meeting was an opportunity to share stories, laughter, and love. One day, during one of these visits, something extraordinary happened. Alfredo was sitting next to Sophia, who was drawing in her notebook. Isabel, watching closely, felt a strong connection with her father, as if the silences between them spoke louder than any words. Clara, as always, was nearby, caring for Alfredo with her usual dedication. "Grandpa, could you draw our house?" Sophia asked, handing the notebook to Alfredo. Alfredo smiled and began to draw, his hands moving with care and precision. As he traced the lines of the house, memories surfaced, the garden where he played with Isabel, the swing hanging from the tree, the scent of flowers filling the air on spring afternoons. Suddenly, Alfredo stopped. Something inside him stirred, a feeling he couldn't ignore. He looked at Isabel and Sophia, his eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. Clara noticed the change in his expression and approached, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Alfredo, are you okay?" Clara asked, her voice soft and reassuring. Alfredo took a deep breath, feeling an inner strength he didn't know he had. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Isabel, sensing her father's struggle, took his hand and squeezed it gently. "Dad, we're here with you. Whatever it is, you can tell us." With tremendous effort, Alfredo finally found his voice. "Love," he whispered, his voice hoarse and broken. "Love is everything." The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Isabel and Sophia looked at Alfredo with tears in their eyes, while Clara could hardly believe what she had just heard. Alfredo's first words in so long were filled with a simplicity and depth that touched everyone in the room. Isabel hugged her father, feeling the warmth and strength of his words. "Yes, Dad, love is everything, and we love you more than anything." Sophia, her eyes shining, joined the hug, wrapping her arms around her grandfather. "Grandpa, you spoke. I'm so happy." Clara, moved, wiped away a tear that rolled down her cheek. "Alfredo, you're incredible. I never doubted your strength." Alfredo's recovery of his voice, even if only a few words, was a miracle for his family. It wasn't just the return of speech, but a symbol of hope and renewal. Alfredo continued to speak, slowly and with effort, but each word was a victory, a step towards complete recovery. The entire hospital heard of Alfredo's progress, and the story of his return to speech spread, inspiring patients and staff alike. He became a symbol of perseverance and love, someone who, despite adversity, found a way to express himself again. Isabel and Sophia's visits became even more precious. They continued to draw together, now with Alfredo adding his own words to the drawings. Each meeting was a celebration of life and the love that bound them. Clara, witnessing this transformation, felt a deep gratitude. She knew her role in Alfredo's life was more than just caring for his physical needs. She was there to support, encourage, and share moments of joy and sorrow, becoming an inseparable part of this journey of love and healing. And so, with the power of love and perseverance, Alfredo rediscovered not only his voice, but also the depth of the bonds that connected him to his family and the friends he had made along the way. Days turned into weeks, and Alfredo's journey continued to be marked by small daily miracles. His voice, once lost in the shadows of silence, now emerged stronger each day, bringing forth new words and emotions that had been locked inside him for so long. One sunny afternoon, Isabel, Sophia, and Clara were sitting in the hospital garden with Alfredo, enjoying the gentle warmth of the sun. The flowers around them were in full bloom, filling the air with a sweet fragrance that seemed to symbolize the renewal everyone felt in their hearts. Alfredo, holding Isabel's hand, looked at his daughter with a gaze full of gratitude and love. "Isabel, you have always been my strength," he said, the words coming slowly but with a clarity and emotion that deeply touched everyone. Isabel smiled, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Dad, you taught me the true meaning of resilience and unconditional love. I am the one who is grateful to you." Sophia, sitting next to her grandfather, held one of her drawings, a family reunited under a blossoming tree. "Grandpa, I made this for you. It represents our family, always together, no matter what happens." Alfredo looked at the drawing and then at Sophia, his eyes full of pride. It's beautiful, Sophia. Family is everything. Clara, witnessing this tender scene, felt a deep peace in her heart. Her role in Alfredo's recovery was not just professional but personal. She had become part of something bigger, a family united by love and perseverance. Over time, Alfredo gained more confidence in his speech. He began sharing stories of his youth with Isabella and Sophia, filling their moments with laughter and memories. Each word he spoke was a testament to his incredible journey of recovery and the strength of the love that surrounded him. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Alfredo gathered Isabella, Sophia, and Clara around him. "I want to thank all of you," he began, his voice firm and clear. "You have given me a second chance to live, to love, to be myself again." Isabella hugged her father, feeling the warmth and strength of his words. "Dad, we are so proud of you. Your strength and determination inspire us every day." Sophia, her eyes shining, added, "Grandpa, you are my hero. I'm so happy that you are better." Clara, moved, held Alfredo's hand. "Alfredo, you have shown us the power of love and hope. We are all so grateful to be a part of your life." From that moment on, Alfredo's life was marked by a new chapter, a chapter of hope, love, and renewal. He continued to improve, each day bringing new words and new opportunities to share his story. Isabella and Sophia kept up their regular visits, now not just as an act of love, but as a continuous celebration of life. They knew that, regardless of the challenges they might still face, they were united by unbreakable bonds of love and resilience. Clara, in turn, remained a constant source of support and inspiration for Alfredo and his family. She knew her work went beyond physical care. It was about nurturing the spirit and keeping the flame of hope alive. And so, with the sunset shining upon them, Alfredo, Isabella, Sophia, and Clara sat together, appreciating the beauty of the moment. They knew that the future would still bring challenges, but they were confident that, together, they could overcome anything. Alfredo, now stronger and more confident, smiled at his family and friends, feeling a deep and lasting peace. He knew that with love and determination, anything was possible. And with that knowledge, he was ready to embrace the future, no matter what lay ahead.